Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Pamela and today we're going to be talking about PTSD. PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder, and I want to give you guys some information as to how we identified it in our household, how we deal with it and cope with it every single day, and also just share with you our experiences. Before we get started, I just want to thank you so much for being so supportive of this channel. I'm trying to just make these videos as informative as I can because I want to make sure that it gets to any military spouses that might need this kind of information, these kind of videos. So thank you so much for your support. I would really appreciate it if you like and subscribe so that we can get more of these videos out into the algorithm so more of these spouses can see them as well. Okay guys, so let's start with what is post-traumatic stress disorder. And the book definition for it is, I'm going to read it from what I gathered on Google because I feel like it's really important for you to have a specific understanding as to what it actually means. So, a disorder in which a person has difficulty recovering after experiencing or witnessing a terrifying event. The condition may last months or years, with triggers that can bring back memories of the trauma accompanied by intense emotional and physical reactions. So the key word there is going to be it may last months or years, and triggers. So all of that sounds way too relatable. So let me give you a little bit of a background story before we get started and jump into the whole military experience. So my husband did suffer from some childhood trauma back in the day. He did not have a regular childhood, which really affected the way that he thinks now. And those are things that he didn't realize before. He didn't realize that his mentality was different. He didn't realize that he thought of things a lot further than other people until now that he realizes all of the things that he has been accomplishing is because of the fears, the neglect, feeling of failure from before. So can it be your strength? Absolutely. Your trauma can definitely be your strength, but you need to make sure that you know how to identify it, how to accept it, and everybody around you needs to be very supportive. So with him having this childhood trauma already, right, like that was his foundation as a child, was just neglect, abuse, and just a lot of stuff that happened with him. He already had this foundation and it was not a good one. And then you stack on top this military experience, which overall every soldier is going to have, a lot of negative experiences. I got a lot of scary journeys, and he's already had, this awful childhood experience, and then you're stacking the military on top with deployments, training, just a lot of stuff going on mentally. And so of course he's going to be reliving, nightmares, reliving experiences in his dreams, in his everyday lifestyle now, and he's going to have PTSD, whether it's a very mild form or a very extreme form of PTSD. Our soldiers are getting it. And what saddens me is that a lot of these soldiers don't reach out for help because it's, to them, they're like, oh, well, what I have is nothing compared to what so-and-so has. So they all of a sudden invalidate themselves, and it's awful because then that leads to drugs, alcohol, depression. Unfortunately, it puts them into this dark place that sometimes they can't get out of. And so I hope that this video brings a little bit of awareness so that you guys can see that there is many different types of PTSD out there, and a lot of our soldiers need support. After Sean's first deployment, I didn't see too much of a change because I didn't realize what was happening. I didn't know he was going through changes. The one thing that I did notice, he was having these nightmares. As soon as he got back, he was more quiet. He was definitely happy to be back and excited and just relieved, but I could see that he was a little bit shut off from everything. And it makes sense now because they feel this detachment from the people that have not gone through what they have gone through. So that's very understandable. But back then I didn't see that. So to me, I remember just kind of thinking, why is he acting like this? You know, maybe it's just our relationship. We need to rekindle things up, which we did because he had been gone for over 6 months. And all of a sudden I see him again. You have to work on your relationship again. But he was having these nightmares at night, and he would wake up in the middle of the night and he would be speaking like gibberish, a completely different language. And then sometimes it would be kind of creepy. Like, you know, I would get alien vibes. I'd be like, oh, what's happening? But at the end of the day, you know, when I would think about these things, it made sense. Like, he just came back from deployment. There's probably things that he hasn't told me about and that he has nightmares about. He's reliving these experiences in his dreams. And throughout the day, he was absolutely fine. Again, it was just the detachment from me that I could see and I could feel. I want to say, you know, I think after like 6 months or so, he was back to his old self, you know? And then when he became a Green Beret, he had to deploy again. And that one was, I think, the one that kind of hit home a little bit more. And honestly, I don't want to scare you guys out of, you know, the whole Green Beret experience, the whole special operations experience, because it's an amazing journey to be on with your spouse, with your significant other. It's going to put you through trials and tribulations, you know, when it comes to your relationship, your family, but it's only going to draw you guys closer, and it's going to make you guys stronger as a couple. After that second deployment, I noticed that Sean would just get very emotional, and he's not he's not a sensitive guy. He doesn't show his feelings like that. So the fact that he would get emotional and start, and he would only get emotional when he thought about his teammates, especially the ones that they lost overseas, the ones that weren't able to make it home. He would get very emotional about that, especially if he would, just crack a beer, and I think it would just come back to him. And I guess we could call that emotional drinking. And it wasn't like he was having multiple drinks, but to just have that one beer at night would really open up his mind and just let him relax. And the way that he relaxed was emotionally. He would just start thinking of all of the people that he lost while he was in Afghanistan. I also noticed that he started getting anxiety whenever he was around people, when he was in public places, because he did not feel like he had control over situations. And let's think about it. These soldiers are taught to have control over every single situation. They're taught to be ready for anything, any attacks, any confrontations. And so for him to be in Afghanistan, it's normal for them to live in tension every single day and be ready. Whereas to when they come back home, in the civilian world, all of a sudden they're like, they don't know, their brain cannot process that they're back home. They need to relax because they've been on this journey for 6+ months, and their mind is still on alert. With that being said, you guys need to make sure that there is a little bit of time post-deployment to give your significant other time to decompress. So are they going to feel, detachment from you? Probably. They're going to need some time, some time alone, some time away, sometimes with the boys or with their teammates. Make sure you're giving them some space because they need to decompress. They need to process everything that they just went through and transition into the mentality of being back at home. They might go through changes in mood like very frequently, and that's okay. I mean, that's normal. There's always that extent, right? You don't want them to get to the point to where it becomes dangerous. And when it does, that's when you may want to seek for counseling. But honestly, I feel like if you guys build a really good foundation in your relationship, you strategize, and you guys have a really good communication, then you guys are going to be very well off. So the way that we found out Sean struggled with PTSD was because, not necessarily because I kept telling him that he needed to go and see a therapist or go talk to someone, because it did get to the point. It got to the point to where like I felt like he needed to speak to someone that wasn't me, because I could feel like he had feelings inside that he didn't want to demonstrate around us, because at the end of the day he wants to feel strong, he wants to be strong for us. So I would, tell him like, hey, well, maybe you need to go see someone, just talk to someone so you can get your feelings out, and then maybe they'll recommend something, some type of communication strategy so that you can have with me. And he just wouldn't go for it, which is understandable. I mean, I get it. He's a guy, he's not, they don't listen sometimes. So what happened was that we actually met another couple who had actually a lot of experience in the military. They had been deployed multiple times, and they both had, one of them has severe PTSD. He spoke to Sean and told them all of these things that he goes through on a daily basis, all of these struggles that he has to face because of his anxiety, because of his stress. And Sean didn't realize it, back then. But then when he heard that conversation, when he heard him talk about his experience, he realized, well, I am going through the same stuff too. Like, should I go talk to someone? And that's when his friend said, yes, you need to go and talk to someone, because at the end of the day, you're not helping yourself. You're not helping your family if you're not reaching out for help. And so I think that it's going to be really hard sometimes for our significant others to reach out for help somewhere else, to reach out for a therapist or a psychologist or anything. But we just have to be very supportive. We have to keep communicating. We have to keep being there for them. So make sure that you're not, just on them about it. You need to give them some slack. If they're not seeking out help, then maybe you can seek out help, and not for them, but for you. Maybe there's a better way for you to communicate with your significant other after deployment. Maybe there's a better technique that you can use and you've just never thought about it. But if you go to a counselor, maybe they're willing to teach you and you'll figure something out that's, working a little bit better for your relationship. After a long conversation with a friend of mine whose husband has severe PTSD, she made me realize that, life doesn't just end because your spouse has PTSD. It doesn't mean that it has to be hard. It just means that you need to tweak your lifestyle a little bit, and that's okay. So now whenever we go to public places, we make sure that we plan it out weeks ahead or a week in advance to make sure that my husband has time to process what's going to happen, so that he has time to get ready mentally. Whenever we go to the movie theater, I know that my husband is already trying to strategize, where's the exit, what if anything were to happen, how is he going to take care of his family, and also just get out with the family. And it's crazy, right? Because it's like, as a civilian, you don't think about that stuff. Like, that there's a possibility, and it's very rare that something would ever go wrong at a movie theater or at the mall or at a restaurant. But to them, to a soldier post-deployment, they're not thinking like that. They're instantly thinking about, how am I going to get my family out of here if something goes wrong? Because that's what they've been trained to do for so many years. We go to a restaurant, I can't have Sean facing people, because then he starts to listen to what they're saying. He starts looking around. He gets a little bit paranoid because he sees all these people coming in, and that's okay. So what I do is I make sure that he's facing the wall, so that way he only faces me. So do you see where I'm getting at? Yes, it's going to be an inconvenience at first for you to have to deal with all of these different scenarios. It's going to be a little bit hard at first, but you need to be so understanding. You need to be flexible, and there's nothing about the military that doesn't say flexible. I mean, you have to be flexible with everything. Don't let your significant other feel invalidated because they have or they've been diagnosed with PTSD or any anxiety, stress, any mental disorder. Don't let them feel invalidated. Help them embrace, help them accept themselves, because only that way will they be able to cope, heal, and really move on with their lives and achieve their goals. All right, guys, that's it for today. Remember to always lend out a helping hand wherever you can, especially with our soldiers. I've seen the fact that, suicide percentages are just going up and up and up in the military, within the military community. It sucks. It really does. And it's a very sensitive topic, and I don't like to talk about it, but it needs to be said. These men and women feel so invalidated because they feel like their problems are as not as important as other people's problems. And I don't believe that. Like, that's not okay. It's not okay for them to feel like, less of a person, or like their problems don't matter, because I struggled through the military when I was in, and it sucks. And I remember feeling like I shouldn't say anything because my problems are like this compared to somebody else's problem. But you know what? Everybody's heart is different, and we need to make sure that everybody in the military feels validated. Just remember that whether you're a soldier, a spouse, kids, moms, or dads, you guys are all so valuable to us. We appreciate your sacrifice, and we love you so much. Thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye.